Welcome to the Remarketing Podcast. My name is Jerome Lewis. I'm your host for today. The Remarketing Podcast is a podcast where we talk marketing, tech, business, and leadership. We talk these things for real estate agents, real estate investors, and real estate entrepreneurs. The Remarketing Podcast is a podcast where we have two purposes. Purpose number one, Kirk, to spotlight you, your business, your product, or your service in a way that provides value to you, including market exposure and content creation. Purpose number two, to educate and inform our listeners. With that, we have a very special guest. I'm excited. We have Kirk Euler. Kirk Euler is a globally recognized marketer, operator, and speaker. He's built and run businesses from startup to over 500 million in annual revenue, assembled teams across 6 continents, been part of the small team leading an IPO of 880 million and participated in dozens of acquisitions. He was at the front lines creating several of the marketing channels we all use today, including social media management, influencer marketing, and location-based marketing. In recent years, he has focused on helping individual business owners and marketing agencies with a heavy focus on real estate in the United States. Kirk and his team have analyzed more than 50,000 real estate websites over each of the past 3 years, and the agent businesses behind them to identify what works and what doesn't in modern marketing. Kirk, I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome. You're welcome. So, Kirk, one of the things that I like to always do is I like people to tell us their story in their own words. So with that, Kirk, can you tell us your story and tell us how you got to where you are today?
I'm still trying to understand exactly where I got to today. People always ask what you do, and a lot of times that means very different things depending on the people you're talking to. So let's start with where I'm at today, and then I'll go give you a brief overview of that story. So today I hold dual roles. So both I'm an executive with EXP World Holdings, and so I'm one of a very small number of people that help run EXP, the consumer technology, like EXPRealty.com, the big things like that. But how I came into that, and still a role that I have, is Showcase IDX as a company falls up underneath me as well. And I have a woman underneath me named Tiffany that runs that team and runs that company. And so that's really where you kind of gave me that bio. So, I have these dual roles. I have the big corporate thing, which we'll talk about in my story, but as part of that Showcase IDX, I was in that very small team where their founder and the early and largest investor came to me and was like, "Look, we have this incredible technology, and it's so much better than what the competition has, but we're not growing." And so that was very intriguing for me. And so I helped grow that company for 3 years, and then EXP actually acquired it. It's kind of firewalled. It's a subsidiary, it's owned, but it lives by itself. But during that time period, like that Showcase IDX serves thousands of real estate agents across hundreds of brokerages and teams. And so I'm able to see what works and what doesn't in real estate agent marketing, all the way back through their CRM and the leads. And it's been amazing to see like what works and doesn't. But how I got there was like, that conversation started because I love networking. I love helping people. And I didn't realize it, but I'm an operator. There's not another term for it. There's entrepreneurs, that people that like to start things. I don't like to start things, actually. I'm a scaler. I'm somebody who usually takes something, I have a problem, somebody else comes to me, they say, we already know the solution for it. How do I add 1 or 2 zeros in a year or two to this product or this company? And that started actually when I was 14. I had started became 2 LLCs in that year because I had to file taxes because I had employees for one of those companies. I was making too much money from both of these that I had to start filing taxes at 14, and they just kept growing at that point. And I've had this huge thing where I've gone through college, and I spent like 18 years in high growth technology, things that are really complex, things like social media management. We're taking things that they're either at the forefront, somebody knows how to do it, or it's really complex, and making it just stupidly simple for people, usually individuals or other companies, to grow their businesses with.
Thank you for sharing that. I remember, so I'm with EXP. I'm one of the instructors. I teach like social media. I turned it over to marketing implementation, but I teach the social media mastermind, and I didn't know that I was talking to you today. So that's exciting. That was a nice little surprise.
Yeah, I mean that's part of like and to the credit of actually the leadership team of one showcase IDX was acquired. It has been it is firewalled from the rest of the thing because it's the vast majority of the customers are across the industry that are not EXP, and so like that team that runs that company for me, like it's heard about within EXP, but it's really it serves the industry at large because it's not an EXP only product, and so it's one of those things I do hear where agents sometimes are like, oh, I think I heard that at some point, but it's not pushed through the culture because very good core values, but it is a separate company that really the EXP side doesn't really look into that much.
Okay, so you have like it's so much, and I get really like excited about technology, and you tell me if this is like appropriate or not. From your perspective, what is IDX and how does it like benefit the agents? Do you think that would be helpful, like how that
Yeah,
technology works
I
and
think it
some of the
would be.
future? Yeah.
I think it would be helpful because it's so misunderstood. So even outside of like the day jobs, associations, MLSs, sometimes large teams bring me in to just talk about marketing with them sometimes. And often people think an IDX is like actually they think it's a CRM, where that where they keep their leads. What IDX actually the technical thing is it's literally just how this isn't even how we typically market it. It's how the MLSs provide their data out to technology companies to be able to access it. But what the more common thing is it's that home search on somebody's website. And so you don't want your clients going to Zillow.com and searching there, or going to Redfin or Truly or somewhere. And so that home search, whether it's part of an all-in-one like KV Core or Real Geeks, or it's something powered by Showcase IDX by itself that's on your standalone website, that extra search bar, the technology that brings in your MLS data, the listings for the home buyers, allows them to do a search, get listing alerts. That's really what the IDX is.
Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, I really don't know what it is, and you just like informed me on exactly what it is because I know it's vital. I know we definitely need it, and I'm like, I love technology, and I was like, oh, that's a like EXP is just like keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. That absolutely makes sense for technology to understand like in detail and then purchase the company like they did. So that makes a lot of
Well,
sense.
it was vital to building out. We have a whole large team that builds proprietary technology just for at the brokerage level, not for the individual agents. But the core of it is what individual agents have. And so I kind of give an example. I think everybody should be Patrick Higgins. Patrick Higgins is a Compass agent in Nashville. He gave the testimony anybody would want. Like, hey, he came over from a competitor. He started building his website. At this point, it's been about 4 years, but with not very much traffic. And now he gives numbers. That's what people want from a marketing perspective. And he goes, now his website drives for him and his team about 50,000 organic visitors from Google every month. That means they're not paying for pay-per-click. They put the investment in up front, and that search value that people are coming to them, they're discovering them, and then people are actually using it as well. And so like there's a big it is needed. You mentioned you do marketing implementation. The one thing that I'm a marketer and an operator by trade. I came into real estate and I didn't realize how from a marketing funnel perspective how much the lack of like having a usable home search to an individual agent like actually just kills their business if they can't grow it. Large teams have figured it out. They usually have custom websites, sometimes a showcase, sometimes other things. But it's like you go to any other industry. You don't go to electricians with a 25 truck company. You don't go to any other industry and say, hey, the leads you get, whether they're from Google or pay-per-click, that hey, 90% of them, 95% of them are going to be called by one of your competitors. But that's what real estate is like. If an agent doesn't have a home search as their own, that their clients would actually use, because then their clients are going to go to Zillow and a competitive agent will call. It's like, I don't know how as an individual agent I could ever build a funnel knowing that like, hey, especially with a lot of other solutions, like 85-90% of the people, even if I get the lead, won't actually use my search. They're going to go to Zillow and a competitive agent's going to call you. How do you actually do a funnel where like you have 90% leakage out the other side? That's a hard headwind to row into.
It is, and so you like mentioned marketing. I got not experience as you, but I have some experience in marketing. And one of the things that we kind of overlap. One of the things that I realized in our industry is we got marketing, and then we also got technology. And technology is like great for people like us that kind of understand it. But like the agents, they're trying to focus and they're like, look, we just want leads and we want to sell people their houses. So can you like offer some advice and some insight on how we can like fix this? Because you have like a specialty in making technology much simpler. And like I'm like trying to figure it out. I'm teaching people, I'm showing people this stuff, and it's like it's not as simple as we think it is. And if we could just make it simple, we can add that value to our clients, to the agents, and vice versa. So
Yeah, I like to think about simple as a feature, but sometimes, you know, a lot of times for an individual agent, they have to choose between simple and less functionality, or it's in my mind, it's required that they have somebody like you that can help them make things simple. And so, technology, I think agents should think about things as a technology stack. And so there's all-in-ones, or you can kind of get individual pieces of technology that do certain things. There's all-in-ones. That's a technology like a KB Core or a Real Geeks or a Sync. These are things that do everything. But I kind of compare that to like that multi-tool that we all have, especially as agents. You know, you have in your car. You know, if you're tightening up a light socket or something, you know, before a showing, it's that thing with pliers that you fold out. And it's got a knife and a screwdriver and a pair of scissors. Well, does it do anything really well? Well, the pliers are actually pretty good, and the knife's not bad, but it has one size screwdriver, and the scissors don't cut anything. But it's simple because it fits in your pocket. That's what an all-in-one is. And so a lot of times these all-in-one platforms, they do one thing really well. Like KV Core is a great CRM for those that use it. A little complicated, but it's really powerful. And then they have all these other things, which it's simple in that they're all integrated. What I prefer from agents is thinking about it as a tech stack. Instead of simple, hey, would you or I ever, you know, if we're going to have somebody build our house, it's a bare plot of land, would we ever hire 20 people and then give all 20 people one of those multi-tools to go build a house? No, we're going to give them specialized tools to do certain things well. And so what's the best CRM? Well, is it Follow Up Boss, Lion Desk? Is it Sync? That's a decision I think an agent should make or their implementation person should make. What's the best IDX? Well, not me. The research says it's Showcase IDX. What's the best pay-per-click system? Well, that's often going to be depending on who they're working with that can piece those things together. And there's other parts, like what's the best tool for sending out emails? God, I love MailChimp. But if you were using Follow Up Boss, I would just use what Follow Up Boss has in there because that works very well. And so I think about it as technology is you either get that all-in-one, which means you're going to lose functionality and some value, but it's simple, or do you stack together technology and get the kind of the best of breed? Or some cases, that's also what's given to you by your brokerage. But a lot of times it is too complicated for an agent. Technology is complicated. And that's where I think too many agents try to do it themselves. And it's really hard. It's like when I dig into most successful agents, at some point, they got a transaction coordinator because there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of things to get just right. And you can do an SOP and hand it off to somebody else because as an agent, your time is better spent working with clients and doing other things. Just like you need a transaction coordinator, you probably need an implementation person or marketer that can help put together that technology stack and listen to your wants and make that happen for you. So somebody like you would be helping that agent, in my mind, make things simple. And, you know, like I don't need to know how my car works. I know it takes oil and gas. When it's wrong, I go to the mechanic. And so that's about all that I need to know. I need transportation. I don't need to know how to fix my engine.
thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you. And you know, people still always ask like, what's the best this, what's the best that? So I'm not asking you what's the best because like you, I agree that there is no best. The best anything, right? I always say like the best CRM is the one you use. The best email list is the one you use. Doesn't matter. Like pick something and use that. Make it work because it all works. Facebook ads, Google ads, everything works. You just have to pick something and stick to it. So from your perspective, if someone's like starting like brand new, right? It's not no best, but what would you recommend like they start to like tech stack? Did they come in and get a CRM? Did they get an email list? Like what are some of your recommendations based off that?
If they're new, I'm really going to look at what does their brokerage give them. But there's a big caveat on that. The brokerage tools belong to the brokerage, and so I just say that according to NAR, the average agent stays with their brokerage 5 years before they change brokerages. And so that means some are changing in a year or 2 years, and some are staying there for 12 years, but every 5 years. And so I think from what do you use? If you're just getting started, hey, a lot of times your brokerage will give you some really useful tools, But the two most valuable assets for you as an agent are your personal brand and your database. And so if those are really held by your brokerage having a kirk.kw.com subdomain email, website, well, what happens if I change brokerages? That my clients are going to go back to that website where the brokerage was at before. And if I haven't exported my contacts before I tell my broker I'm gone, I don't even have my database. And so I'd say if you're new, use what you have because it's cost effective probably, but make sure that you're exporting some things out because it's a risk mitigation. And as soon as you can, in my mind, the two things that every agent should have is they should have their own website domain, kurtuhler.com as an example. And now you may be using your brokerage to power that website, but that's your brand because everything else you do, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, pay-per-click ads, as you mentioned, should go back to my mind. It's a digital that says, hey, is Facebook the right thing? Maybe if that's good for you, but what happens when they change their algorithm? You need to have been training your clients to find you at your website. And then you want to bolt your CRM behind that as quickly as you can.
Thank you for sharing that. We have a lot of the same agreements. People come in and it's like, yeah, use what you have, but you want to grow and become like your own kind of individual business as well. You want to become independent of the brokers. Like you can still use them, use their resources, but don't become too heavily dependent on everything that they offer because anything can happen. They could go out of business. Their website could go down. It's all kind of stuff that could put you back.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say a lot of the brokerages they give really incredible tools. A lot of times they're these all-in-ones, and so I would never say don't use them. I would just say use them for what you think where you think it benefits your business because it's not the brokerage business, it's yours as an agent. And then almost all of these all-in-ones they have a connection through Zapier. I know you know what that is, but for anybody that's listening, like if they don't know how to set up a Zapier connection that will send leads out to something else, like that's where like, hey, go hire somebody to just help make up that connection. Like, hey, use the CRM that comes from your brokerage, but every connection, every new lead, I want that at least exported out to a Google sheet, just in case something happens that I have a Google sheet that's on my own domain that I have a list of all my contacts that I could go back for. That's hugely easy to do.
Thank you. So when we were going through your bio, we mentioned like three things mentioned, and I want you to try to tie them into like the importance of like building a brand. So you mentioned marketer, you mentioned operator, and you mentioned speaker, and I want you to help our audience understand the importance of each of those things and how they help build your brand and how they build your marketing.
Yeah, I to me everything comes back to operations, and so what I didn't realize early on was like. It is about operations, especially things that are repeatable, which that's so much of what personal branding is. It's about consistency. And so does somebody need to post once a day, 7 times a day? They need to be consistent. And so that's for me, if you're a good operator, you'll be good at marketing. You'll be good at sales. You'll be good as a lawyer. You'll be good at just about anything on there. And so I didn't, people ask, what are you, Kurt? Well, I often get brought in as a COO, chief marketing officer. I don't actually like the CEO role. I'd rather be a king or queen maker than actually kind of that top person all the time and help counsel them. But from an individual, especially for agents, everything comes back around to marketing in some way. Marketing and sales are really the same because we've shifted so much to this influence economy. And so, hey, people know they could go to Redfin, they could go to Trulia or Zillow or wherever to go search for a home. Why should they work with you? Agents think, oh, I have a lead. Well, now I just need to kind of work that. Well, maybe, but the average person is talking to at least 3 people before they decide who they're going to work with, whether there's a buyer's agreement or not. I mean, my wife and I, when we decided to buy our house in Roswell, Georgia, I think we probably had 13 or 14 friends that were full-time agents, successful agents, and we chose none of them for our agent. None of them.
Wow.
Because we got introduced to somebody that was spot on niche to where we were. And multiple people were like, you need to talk to Bobby. And they told us why. And it wasn't Bobby that told us. He had built this influence around him. And then when we met with him, he just had his operation just on lock. And so that's where it's like, I'm an operator. I can fill in. I can be that puzzle piece in a lot of places. But I think too many people try saying, well, I'm a real estate agent, or I'm a marketer, or I'm a business development salesperson. No, all of those things have operations at the core. And if you figure out how to do things repeatedly, you'll be successful in anything you do.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm gonna go over to some of the questions that we have here. And the first question that I have for you, first question, tell us one thing that you didn't expect on it as you are now, right? So let me reframe it. What's one thing your business or successful venture that you didn't expect? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't know if it's. I mean, a lot of this was from reading books, but it's also a little bit as I was growing. I thought when you were to be a good boss and to grow something, that you needed to be an authoritative leader, manage people. Like you need to tell them specifically what to do. And I didn't. I didn't realize that was completely kind of wrong. If I'm micromanaging things, if I'm too involved in too many things, I'm a bottleneck for everything in my company. As opposed to success for me is always establishing SOPs, standard operating procedures, even things I do myself. Hire good people, let them know my overall goals, of which I'm giving them an SOP for some things I want them to do, and then I let everybody see very transparently, hey, are we accomplishing these things or not? And it's scary for people that come from being highly authoritative that want to get in everything. But if you have good procedures down and you hire smart people, you should trust them. And if not, they're going to leave. So if you have good people, they're going to be good for you and they're going to go to war for you.
Thank you. So something that you mentioned like a little bit earlier, right before this, is um, you mentioned like agents, and we were like, oh, we're an agent, we're marketing. Like we say all these things that we are, but at the core, one of the things I say at the core, we kind of run like a business. Could you share your perspective on that? Because I think you got that dialed down. You're like, I do this, I do that. Like you're like a business. You're a hub of different businesses as well. So could you talk to that and emphasize the importance of agents and how we should be thinking about that? So as an example, like we're here talking on this podcast, building some branding and some marketing for other things. So I want to hear you share with our audience on why that's important and how they can maybe transition.
Yeah, I think it's really important that, I mean, a lot of things are in life are depending on how you show up. Hey, when you're networking and you're in your community and you're an agent, you're a realtor, and somebody asks what you do, you should tell them you're an agent or a realtor. Problem is when you're around other business people, or when I'm in talking to either in groups or workshops or sometimes one-on-one, huge difference between those that are successful and have like 6 and sometimes 7 figures gross commission income a year and those that are struggling. And those that have big businesses or are growing, they talk about themselves like they're a business. The other people talk about themselves like they're a real estate agent. And it's like, no, or they talk about themselves as they're a Keller Williams agent or a Remax agent or an EXP agent. And like, no, you are a real estate business yourself. And you may have those brokerages, those brands, they're very important and they can be, but they're there to help you because, hey, you're a 1099 contractor, and which means you don't belong to Remax or Coldwell or anywhere there. And the moment that agents, I think, internalize that says, gosh, I'm a business owner and the business is me, things change for them at that moment. Because then you go, okay, what do I need to do as a business owner? Maybe I can't do everything. And so I think you do list out at that point that I'm a business owner, I'm an operator if I'm an agent. And you should bucket out what are those things that need to happen in your business. And then that allows you to step into, hey, it's a slow day. Like I can't tell you just from my experience on Friday after Thanksgiving, and especially right around Christmas, how many agents that I know that are really successful are actually going to use that time. I'm not saying like if you have family, you spend time with your family. But I know a huge number of successful single agents that use those time when nobody's looking at a house, no clients are reading email. They're using that time to rebuild their website, write articles, do copy, because as a business owner, they're like, gosh, I'm single. It's the day after Christmas. What am I going to do? Well, I can't show a house because nobody wants to see a house. And so they're banking articles that are going to go out over later because they think about themselves as a business.
Thank you. Appreciate that. What is the biggest challenge you're facing in your current role and how are you tackling it?
I struggle with this myself, but I very much have it always with other leaders and business people. It's a lack of patience. What we always say, people will give lip service to say, hey, I know things take time, but their actions they make is, hey, they're essentially looking for get rich quick schemes. They want stuff to happen tomorrow. They're not willing. The patience is ruining not just their life, but their company's growth. And so things take time. And sometimes the best decision to be able to grow in 3 quarters is to go really slow now and do the work that may not grow something today. And so the biggest challenge for me is telling myself, but also helping remind others, hey, we're making wise investments here, and we need to be okay with that.
Thank you. What is the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
Servant leadership wins in the short term, the medium term, and especially the long term.
Could you expand upon servant leadership for us?
Yeah, so often like people do lead. I mentioned it before, kind of like from an authoritative perspective. We're working together. I run the agency. I tell you to do this, and you're just expected to go and do it. And you might be concerned about if you're going to get fired or get written up if you don't do exactly what Kirk said. Servant leadership realizes and says, hey, look, I own the business. My job is here to serve you. I'm the one that's getting the lion's share of this thing if it's growing. So if anything, my job is to help remove bottlenecks from you, train you up, make you a better person, a better team member. And if you happen to leave, so be it. But my job as the business owner or as the leader is to serve you so that we can all accomplish our goals together and acknowledge things too that like, hey, burnout is a problem. And so especially nowadays in the hustle culture. And so part of being a servant leader is, I want you, Jerome, and me, if we're working on the same team, I want us to be successful this year and next year and 5 years. And that means I need to make sure not just like that you're hitting your numbers goals, but that you're also doing what you feel. I may not need to get in your personal life, but like, hey, what do you think you need for time off with family, time with friends, and making sure that that's being scheduled and that we can be there to serve each other too. Because, hey, I want to take time off too, but the business needs to grow. And so being a servant leader is saying, look, I'm not the only one that needs to get time off. So do you.
Thank you. Have you always wanted to be, I guess, in real estate, you're in tech, you're in marketing? Could you talk about that? Did you always is this how you always saw it? Like, I'm going to be this amazing real estate influencer, technology influencer. What was that like?
No, I had no idea. I had no intention of kind of doing speaking or anything. I operate well. I've always been told I triage well. And so I kind of just fell into those things. I try as much as I can where I'm helping with things to actually not be in the leadership role to help grow other leaders. But I do a lot of speaking now, and I didn't intend to do any of that whatsoever. But I really, from a servant leadership perspective, I realized like I'm discipling a small number of men and women. That's somewhere between 6 and 12 people. I'm helping them kind of do that influx in their career and their personal life. But I can only do help so many people. And by speaking, it really took me back to realizing I had some mentors that said, yeah, you can help 8 people a year if you're just mentoring, discipling. You can help 8,000 people a year if you take some of these speaking roles.
Yeah, that's the same with me. It's like while I create content and while I teach and speak, because you reach more people. And like I'm like a big introvert, but I can't be selfish. Like I'm here, to serve a purpose, and I have to put my emotions to put myself aside so I can help other people. It would be selfish of me, and I always tell people that like you can't just be selfish and say it's all about me. Even like our clients, is like, look, clients need you. You gotta man up or woman up and go out there and serve, because there are people that legitimately need you, and they'll never get your gifts if you don't put it out there.
Yeah, and giving them the opportunity to grow. I mean, I love talking to people like you that have good audiences with a tribe behind them and that do all the work for a podcast. Most people don't just listen. They don't realize how much work it takes to actually get a podcast out consistently in a show. But Showcase IDX is starting a podcast. And so, hey, I could put myself out there, but the better person for that is a gentleman on our team named Paulo. I was actually the bottleneck there because we had somebody on the team and then I was going to be the front face of it. And finally I was like, hey, Paulo, I need you just to own this, but I need you to be the front person for it and bring Tiffany, bring others in, bring me in if you wanted something. I'm going to be a guest in the showroom as well, but that's going to let him grow. And he needs that in his career. He's somebody like, I think in 10 years, I can't wait to see what's happening in his career. And so sometimes the best thing to do from a serving perspective is to help somebody else.
Absolutely. 100%. What is your favorite productivity hack for real estate entrepreneurs?
Realizing when you're and just taking one step in the right direction. I think too often people get sometimes people say it's procrastination. They don't know what to do. They've got too many things to do, and like just realizing when you feel that way and going, great. I don't know what the whole solution is, but I'm gonna spend 5 minutes just doing one thing that'll be productive to get me forward.
Thank you. What is your, because I got to take it there because you're in tech. What is your favorite productivity tool for real estate entrepreneurs?
Trello.
Trello.
I say that so much from a product management perspective. Not only did my companies run on Trello, my wife and I, our households run on Trello. And so, like, I mean, when I go to Costco, I get to pull up a list for a checklist of things to buy at Costco, because you get different things at Costco than you get at the grocery store or Walmart or Home Depot.
Thank you. Next, so we're going to move on to the next session. The next section is like personal questions. So I got a couple personal questions for you. After we hit the personal questions, we'll get to the closing table, and then we got some bonus questions. So, personal question: what is your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
My biggest failure was not realizing that I was an asshole for the first like 10 years of business. I did not. I mean, I pushed hard enough being that authoritative leader. I actually told people this: if one person on my team cries, it's their fault. If the whole team cries, I dialed it to 11, and I just need to dial it back to 9 or 10 to keep them operating well. And when I realized what that was like, and I had a mentor tell me I was an asshole, I went and asked somebody on my team, and I asked my mom, and everybody, they cut me off and said, "Oh yeah, you've always been an asshole. You never listened to it before."
Wow.
And the wake of destruction behind leading teams that way was horrendous.
Wow, that's interesting. The next personal question: if you could, okay, what did you learn from that experience?
I learned that actually I didn't realize that at that time, but having changed my leadership style and have a big change in my heart and things about how I work with people, I had no idea how much faster I can scale companies and teams by leading with more of a high achieving servant attitude leadership, where instead of just trying to crank through and get more tasks done, I truly believe most of the people that have worked for me in the last dozen years, like, I'm not looking for somebody to win a battle today. I'm looking for people to win the war with me about growing this company. And so so much more successful and more fulfilling and less stressful for everyone.
Yeah, I can hear how you talk, that it's inspiring people, and like you said it a few times, like, you're a leader, but it's like, when I create another leader or I inspire somebody else to be a better leader, like, like that's like replication. And we like love technology. It's like replication. You do this one time, and it duplicates and duplicates, and you don't have to be there. Like you just talked about the gentleman for the podcast, and that'll become its whole other thing by itself, because
Right.
you inspired him as a leader, and you're not dictating and micromanaging, like, this is how you do it. So
Right.
I appreciate it. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Do less things. I had a lot of side hustles. Some of them are really good, but I spread myself way too thin instead of making sure that that one or two parts of my business that I should have been really focusing on, that I had those successful, had those on lockdown before I started working on a side hustle, before I started working on that next thing.
Okay. Next session, these are value add and bonus questions. So you mentioned like leadership, and you mentioned servant leadership, and what inspired these questions was like me serving other people. I was doing like a interview or like a Zoom session for a company that I was leading back then, and I asked the speaker, I was like, how can someone add value to you? You're doing all of this great stuff, and nobody stopped for once and said, what can they do for you? So that's what inspired these questions. I'm asking these questions. Sometimes they stomp the speaker, sometimes not. I want to know, the first question is, what is the biggest challenge you're currently facing in your business?
The biggest challenge I'm facing is actually with Showcase IDX. It's finding the best way to connect with marketing agency owners, consultants, implementation people that I can show them the numbers, why things are so much more successful for their clients when they use Showcase IDX, but they're stuck in their ways. And because they've been using some other technology for 10 years, and like, it works for me. And so the hardest thing for me is like, other people don't like to change. And so even though something's could be 3x, 5x better, it's really hard to connect with people and get them to realize that.
Okay, I think I can help with that a little bit. Maybe I can like go down a journey. I have some decent connections that could probably benefit from that. So next question: how can someone bring immediate value to you or your business?
For me or my business, so actually, I will say me personally. So I'm spending a good bit of my personal time right now writing at kurteuler.com, specifically on high achieving servant leadership, and so feedback is very helpful for me. Literally, I have a definitive guide on servant leadership. A lot of that came from people asking questions, but questions, comments, things that are not clear, other article topics people would like, people leave those as comments on my articles. That's the most helpful thing for me right now. Both one, because it tells me what's actually useful to people, but I find that I'm better at my business in the day job when I'm writing at night and getting thoughts out of my head. So when you give me, hey, a problem you'd like a topic on, that lets me focus some of my energy at night, and that'll make me better during the daytime.
Okay, perfect. I like that. I need to think about how I can add value there, but it's for me, right, as well as guests to like think about how you can give someone else something too. The next question is very similar. How can someone add long-term value to you or your business?
Long-term value is actually, I'd say the best thing for me is we're not hiring at the moment, but especially people that sign up on my own site. I'm really big on hiring people that other people recommend, and so for me, the best people on my team now and in the past have always come from recommendations. And the best long-term value are, hey, when I send out something that says, hey, I'm hiring for these 5 roles or these 7 roles, it's very specific, and literally just paying attention and saying, hey, that's not me, but I know the woman you should talk to. And if it's not her, she knows 3 people that would be great for that role. That's the best long-term value for me, because I'm only successful because of the people around me. And so getting those recommendations, those referrals for people, that's the best long-term help for me.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this anyway. What are 3 books that you recommend to the audience and why?
Atomic Habits. Love the book, especially for agents. Profit First. Too many agents are running on very thin margins, and Profit First is good. Actually, Cheryl Backhelder has a book called Dare to Serve. It's the only book on servant leadership that I like from a operator's perspective, because most people write books, servant leadership, or they think it's just the right thing to do. Just true. I like those things. Cheryl has a book. Look, this is how I've grown and turned around public company. It makes the most business sense why, and she has some real concrete examples.
Thank you for sharing that. Quick on the hit. What's one question you wish I'd asked you, and how would you have answered?
Oh, that's a good question. How do you find balance in work versus personal time?
Okay. How do you find balance in work versus personal time?
You realize that balance is a verb. It is not a noun. People try getting this super razor edge thinking like, I'm in Zen balance. No, balance is an active verb. And there will be times where you need to tell your spouse, hey, I'm working late on Tuesdays and Thursdays because there's more hours to hit this inflection point of the business. And there's times that your kids will need you for more. And so it's a verb that you need to be intentional with, and not try to reach some perfect Zen state like you won the lottery and you just get to do what you want.
Thank you. So this is usually people they're like, leave me with a closing statement. And I had a guest on, she was like, Jerome, give me a closing word. So I pose the same thing to our guest now. It's like, one word, you can't explain it or nothing like that. Like, close us out with one word. What would that word be?
Intentionality.
Now I took her thing and I modified it. now I like to get the description afterward. What is your reasoning for picking that word?
Too many people choose what they're going to do in their personal life or work because of feelings, or sometimes it's even things that I value, and they're not making intentional, wise decisions. They don't rely like, hey, we mentioned Trello. I can't tell you how many things are on any of one of my work Trello boards, my personal board. And literally on a daily basis, weekly basis, I have different processes. I'm looking and saying, what do I actually do or not? We have some just wonderful gentleman, Scott McKechnie, doing renovations on our mountain property. We talked with him again yesterday. This morning, my wife and I had reprioritized the list of projects that he's working on for. And so that things literally have shifted from yesterday to today, just from conversations with him, hearing things in, and being intentional. And I think most of us, we just don't do that. We do what feels good at the moment, whether we like to admit it or not.
Thank you for sharing that. So, where can listeners find out more about you online?
I practice what I preach. If you want to find me, kurtuehler.com, my personal website is the best place, because it splinters you out to other things. If you want to have more of a business relationship, you see some more business content, then it's going to send you over to LinkedIn. You can hit some of those categories on my website. If you want to see what my personal life looks like, you can link to my Instagram. It'll link to my Instagram account, so you can see my wife, our 3.5-year-old, our just now 1-year-old little girl, and you get to see what some of that looks like as well. Twitter, it's the love and hate relationship so many people have. Man, I can't believe how many more relationships have come up in the last just like 3 weeks on Twitter, where people are kind of coming back and trying things out. So that's kind of a little more of a conversation. So my website, the best place to splinter out to wherever you would like to interact with me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just like you, I practice what I preach. I always tell people, go buy your domain, buy your name. And I had let mine go like a while back. I had it for $20. And I think maybe 3 years ago, I repurchased it for 200. Thank goodness it was only 200. But I
Yep.
have it. And I always send people like, how can I find out more about you? My website, jeromelewis.com. That's the hub to everything else. And that's how you want to set it up. So, Kirk, this has been fun. I really appreciate you. You have been one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite interviews so far. I always get excited about the tech ones and people that can be concise and direct in their actions. And you've brought that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I always like talking to an implementer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.